Hello, I'm Myron Zimmerman, and I'm this year's recipient of the Louis Brandeis Award, and I'm honored to be here to to get this, and to honor Mort Klein, who is really the backbone of the ZOA. We should all appreciate him every year.
Zionism means standing for Israel. It means standing for the traditional values of the Jewish people in Israel. And now more than ever, people need to stand because Zionism is under attack, as it always has been throughout the modern state of Israel's existence, but now more than ever. And that's why, whether it's Christian, Jew, whomever, we need to stand together for the sake and for the cause of Israel, because that's Zionism. Well, unfortunately, the major nations of the world, the P5+1, have made a decision, a troubling decision, one that turns the page of the hinge of history, which informs us that, for all practical purposes, Iran will become the holder of a nuclear weapon. That's always been Iran's goal, is to have weaponizations of a nuclear weapon, and also to add it to a missile, to be able to have the capacity to deliver it both to the big Satan, the United States, and to the little Satan, Israel. I think all we need to know is what the Ayatollah Khomeini said just in the days leading up to this disastrous, terrible agreement. He wanted to make sure that the whole world knew what the position of Iran was. He put a thumb in the eye of the world, at least those who believe in peace in the world. And he said very clearly to tens of thousands of paramilitary and the Revolutionary Guards, and he said this, he said the Zionist regime is a rabid dog. He also said Iran will not deviate one iota from achieving their nuclear program. That's what we need to know. It's very clear, and the response from the paramilitary was death to America, death to America, death to America. And in the middle of that carnage of rhetoric, our president fell silent. That's why right now we cannot be silent for Zion's sake. We in the United States must stand, people all across the world must stand together with Israel because of the threat, a very real threat now of the nuclear umbrella that is hanging over Israel's head, and that of the peace-loving world.
You'll be receiving the Dr. Miriam and Sheldon Adelson Award for your work in fighting for Israel. I'd like to know your thoughts about the right of Israel and Jews to live in Judea and Samaria, the right of Israel to maintain at least portions of Judea and Samaria, and your thoughts about a Palestinian state, if you have any thoughts about those issues.
My view is a little different than that of the diplomacy community, because I've always felt that the title deed for Israel is not set by the agreement of 1948. It was given by Abraham, and it's pretty well staked out. So for the Jewish people to build bedrooms for their children in Judea and Samaria is simply building the bedrooms in the land that's theirs. And the tiny sliver of real estate that Israel possesses, that is, again, thousands of years part of the deed, is not an unreasonable amount of land to have a safe and secure place for the Israelis to live. I don't know why that should be difficult. The idea of a Palestinian state on top of a Jewish state is beyond insane. It's like having two governments controlling the same piece of real estate, and it's impractical. And when you have one of the sides who believe the other side shouldn't exist, impractical becomes impossible. So that should never work. If we want to talk about two states, that other state should be somewhere in the massive square miles of the land that is already controlled by those who are favorable toward the Palestinians. But it shouldn't be on top of the Jewish state.
Well, we at ZOA always explain that one should not use the term two-state solution because Israel's already a state.
Yeah.
Makes it sound like Israel's getting something here. They're not getting anything. They're already a state. It should be called a Palestinian state solution, which we know will simply be another Hamas-Iran terrorist entity. It will not be a civilized state next to Israel, and that's why such a state would be a disaster for Middle East peace and, frankly, for peace around the world as well. Well, thank you so much, Governor Huckabee, for everything you do, everything you say, your courage. You're really one of the few voices out there telling the truth of the Arab war against Israel. And as I always say, truth is not a political position. What Winston Churchill said wasn't right-wing. He wasn't a warmonger. He was simply telling the truth in the same way that Governor Michael Huckabee tells the truth about the Middle East issues and, frankly, every other issue that I'm aware of. So God bless you, and I'm so grateful that we have Mike Huckabee in our midst.
Thank you
so
so
much.
very much.
The deal that the United States has just penned with the state of Iran is really a tragedy. It's tragedy not only for Israel, but for the United States and for world history. This is a moment in time where the United States had to stand firm. It was the only way to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and the nuclear proliferation which will follow. And instead, the President Obama has capitulated and has, in fact, really had his Chamberlain moment. There's no other way of putting it. And the danger cannot be underestimated. We will, we're really depend on Congress to stand up to, in a bipartisan way, to the President's inability to understand what evil looks like. And I hope that they will do so firmly and solidly in the very near future.
As I said, this is the 115th ZOA Brandeis Award dinner. I remember my first dinner about 100 years ago. And Mort was only 11 or 12 at the time, if I'm not mistaken. But seriously, the ZOA is here, stronger and better than ever, under the incredible leadership of our dynamic president, Morton Klein, and I thank you all for your magnificent support. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our two co-chairs. Shh, ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats quietly. There'll be plenty of time to schmooze, discuss, complain. Shh. I'd like to welcome our two co-chairs, Mr. James Tisch, the past chair of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, chair of the Jewish Agency and CEO of Lowe's Corporation, and Mr. Ken Bialkin, past chair of the Conference of Presidents, past chair of the ADL, senior partner of Skadden Arps. Now, Mort, where are you? You've got to get up here. Tonight, we do have much to celebrate. ZOA's accomplishments continue apace, as you will soon hear. Yes, you will hear wonderful words of congratulation, yet you will also hear sobering words from our terrific panel of speakers, awardees, and guests. For we live in truly perilous times. Yes, it is clear to us all, except for some fools in Washington, that this is 1938. And much like Czechoslovakia then, little Israel is to be the sacrificial lamb for, quote, peace in our time. Make no mistake, we have no friend in this administration. Not a president who says he does not bluff, when in fact that's all he does. Not a Secretary of State who tells Congress to ignore the Israelis. Well, we will not ignore them, nor will we be ignored. Israel, with God's help, will defend itself. And on that note, I invite you to listen to words of welcome from Israel's Prime Minister, the Honorable Benjamin Netanyahu. Please look at your monitors.
Good evening. I want to congratulate tonight's honorees. First and foremost, Governor Mike Huckabee. You received the Mary and Sheldon Adelson Award, and you justly deserve it because Israel has no better friend. You have, throughout your public career, in and outside government, you've supported Israel without ever failing to stand up to it. You've supported a strong Israeli-American relationship. You've always been consistent, clear, courageous, and it's something that everyone in Israel appreciates. I want to wish you many, many years of additional activity and success, Mike. You deserve it. Well done. And I want to also congratulate the other honorees and the wise choices that were made by Mort Klein and by Jimmy Tisch and Ken Bialkin. You have chosen well, all contributors to the Jewish people and the Jewish state. I want you to continue doing what you're doing because we benefit and we are encouraged by your support and the constancy of your stance for Israel and the Jewish people. Thank you.
Kol od balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia Od lo avda tikvatenu ha-tikva shnat alpayim liotam chofshi be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Liotam Chofshi Be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so madly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch, we're so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Well, I think we were very brave to do that without the chazan. Please be seated. Shh. It now gives me great pleasure to call upon Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, author, TV host, and named by Time magazine as one of the 10 most influential rabbis in America. Rabbi Boteach, to lead us in the invocation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This past Friday, this great nation looked back 50 years to the slaying of a president, where those who lived at the time of that tragedy asked themselves, Where were you when JFK fell? But the truth is that nations are judged not in how they mourn the past. Nations are rather judged in how they celebrate their history and the present. This coming Thursday night, for the first time since 1888, this great nation will celebrate Thanksgiving at the same time that the Jewish people celebrate the festival of Hanukkah. Because the pilgrims could, and it's not going to happen for another 80,000 years, so I suggest you enjoy it. Because when the pilgrims made it through the horrific winter of 1621, they had the opportunity to ascribe their survival to the bounties of nature. But instead they decided to look heavenward, Se'um moroi meinechem, and to give God the thanks instead. When we speak of American exceptionalism, we speak of American values, the capacity to thank God for our blessings. But the Maccabees on Hanukkah took it even further. When the Maccabees scored one of the greatest military triumphs in the history of the world, a tiny ragtag band of guerrillas fighting the men who were essentially the soldiers of Alexander the Great, the Assyrian Greeks, when they defeated them and reestablished the liberty of their faith, amazingly, they never built a single military arch. And they never gave a praise, a song like Beowulf that would celebrate some great military triumph. No, the Jews in their long history have never felt acclaim through the defeat of a foe on the field of battle. Instead, the Maccabees celebrated by lighting candles instead. We are a nation that never glories in our tanks, in our rifles, and our grenades. We are a nation that uses all three to defend life and never to take life. Contrast that, my brothers and sisters, with what our foe, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, brags about in Tehran just this past Thursday. Where when I wear a yarmulke, I know that I have a spiritual responsibility to make a Kiddush Hashem, that Yorem Malka. It means that I have a power that lies above me at all times, to whom I am accountable. But Khamenei got up in Tehran, and first he called Jews rabid dogs. He later said that yet again Israel should be exterminated. And the reaction from our Secretary of State was that these words are unhelpful to the signing of a peace accord. My friends, this is not a battle of words, syllables, and vowels. This is a clash of values. A nation, you can search the length and breadth of ancient Israel and modern Israel, and you will not find a single triumphant military arch. If you go to Rome, you'll see the Arch of Titus, you'll see the Arch of Constantine, you'll see Trajan's column. If you go to ancient Israel or modern Israel, you will see memorials to dead soldiers and victims of terror. We don't ululate when our enemy is defeated. Bifol oivecha al tismach. When your enemy falls, never rejoice. We pour wine out of our glasses on Passover night because we do not want to drink the wine of the Egyptians' affliction. Where are the American statesmen to look Ali Khamenei in the eye and call him what he is? A religious fraud, a spiritual snake oil salesman, a devout phony, a pious imposter, a holy hoaxer, a sacred scam artist, and a man who has replaced the conviction of the homo religiosus with the con artistry of a man who wants to see others die. For goodness sake, Am Yisrael Chai, this nation has chosen to live. And we proclaim it every day as part of the davening. Loi amos ki echye, I shall not die, for I shall live. In today's Torah reading, Pharaoh sees a dream of 7 emaciated cows that swallow 7 healthy cows, and he can't interpret the dream. And he turns to Joseph, a Jew who has just been brought up from prison, and he asks him to interpret it. And Joseph says, those 7 fat cows represent 7 years of plenty that will be forgotten through 7 years of famine. Is everyone here aware of the fact that the sanctions that were imposed on Iran that brought them to their knees started 7 years ago in UN Security Council Resolution 1696, passed in 2006? And it led to an emaciated terror regime run by the Ayatollahs that's on the brink of collapse. And now, as we celebrate the ZOA dinner under Mort's courageous guidance, last night in Geneva, ignominy reigned when the sanctions will be removed, even in part, so that we can fatten that cow. And what will the Iranians do with the $5.5 billion they will receive? What will they do with that money? They will use it to hurt innocent people. This is a clash of values. The greatest warrior of the Jewish people, King David, is remembered not for his victories on the battlefield. He is remembered for his songs of Tehillim, singing with a harp and a lyre. May universal Jewish values reign triumphant. Ladies and gentlemen, may the state of Israel be strong, and may the United States of America, blessed by God always, promote its democratic values that have made it the greatest nation in the world, and may American exceptionalism always fight tyrants where they are to be found. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Boteach. And by the way, the ZOA has already booked the room for the Sunday before Hanukkah, 80,000 years from now. So please, that's just a reminder. All right, and now it gives me pleasure to ask Rabbi Boteach to lead us in the Motzi, although I don't, frankly, see I see a place to wash, but is there challah over there? Shmuley, can you please come back? All right. Here, let him wash. You don't mind washing? Talked amongst yourselves.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Blessed be you, Lord our God, who extracts bread from the earth.
Thank you, Rabbi Boteach. And while he is munching on the challah, we'll continue. I am now privileged to call upon a good friend, Michael Orbach. Michael is past ZOA chairman of the board. He's one of the people that actually got me into this mess. Brandeis awardee, past Brandeis awardee. And I'd like to call upon him to present the Irving and Cherner Moskowitz Award. Michael, please come forward.
Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? Mr. Korn is the head of the Korn law firm of Florida and New York. He was formerly with the New York firm Paul Weiss Rifkin. His clients include individuals and companies throughout the United States, Asia, and the Caribbean, as well as prominent real estate and investment funds. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa and first in his class from Brandeis and the University of Pennsylvania Law School. For years, Tyler chaired the Israel Bonds Initiative for Southern Florida. Mr. Tyler Korn, your efforts to fight anti-Israel propaganda on campuses and elsewhere is recognized by all of us at the ZOA. You have also been a generous philanthropist in both time and resources for the benefit of the Jewish people, Israel, and the ZOA. Your activism and resourcefulness on behalf of the ZOA will never be forgotten and will always be deeply appreciated. You've done everything you could to help ZOA with patience and wisdom and commitment. You always make yourself available to us despite your very busy practice. It is my honor to present the Cherner and Irving Moskowitz Award for Distinguished Service to the ZOA.
Thank you so much for this award. I'm truly humbled to receive it, especially considering that it's named for the Moskowitzes, who have done so much to build the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael. I'd like to just quickly just thank a few people. My grandparents, may they rest in peace, and my parents for instilling in me a deep dedication to Judaism and to Israel, and for the education that they afforded me. I'd like to thank my wonderful wife, Rebecca, for her love and encouragement. I'd like to thank our 2 children, whose existence reminds me daily of the importance of having a state of Israel. And I would like to thank Mort Klein. Mort's strength of character and passion for the truth are what give the ZOA its courage to speak out on behalf of Israel, often alone, when others are too mealy-mouthed or even timid to do so. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mazel tov, Tyler, thank you. And thank you for really sticking to the schedule. Now I'd like to call upon our next presenter, Ms. Joyce Chernick, who is a remarkable pro-Israel activist, a major ZOA supporter, to present the Ben Hecht Award.
Bayefsky has been monitoring the United Nations for the last 30 years. First, as a human rights attorney, and then for the last 12 years as the director of the Touro Institute, a UN-chartered NGO. She is also editor of its publication, Human Rights Voices. She regularly appears at the UN in New York and Geneva to attend the cynically named Human Rights Council, formerly known as the Human Rights Commission. Most of the 1,000 plus attendees are there to attack Israel. When Anne speaks, a noisy room goes quiet because she defends Israel and denounces the UN. She concludes her speech as she begins it, to sustained, cold, and hostile silence. Anne attended the UN Durban conference in 2001, which designated Israel as the world's only racist country. But when the UN followed up with Durban II in Geneva in 2009 and Durban III in New York City in 2011, Anne was ready. She organized counter-conferences that included Governor Mike Huckabee, Natan Sharansky, John Voight, Elie Wiesel, Mayor Ed Koch, and Israel's UN Ambassador Ron Prosser. Both times she stole the show from Ahmadinejad to an overcrowded room of international journalists. The bias against pro-Israel advocacy in the UN is intensifying as anti-Semitism even trumps UN rules against discrimination on the basis of race and religion. But it is clear that Anne is regarded as a significant threat. The UN does not welcome the publicity that results from her observation of UN racism and bigotry against Israel. But as Anne monitors the UN insiders reveal that the UN is monitoring Anne. The UN follows her every word and deed. Let us honor Anne Bayefsky.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joyce, for that extremely kind introduction, to ZOA for this honor, and to its exceptional president and Israel's resolute champion, Mort Klein. First of all, I would like to thank a few people who have been instrumental in my work and my life. My mother, Evelyn, who is here at the age of 89 and has always been an inspiration. She went to college, got a graduate degree, and raised 3 children while writing and campaigning to help make it possible for women to work and raise a family. And after raising her own, she helped me raise mine. Each and every night, she still never goes to sleep without reading a book. In the words of the Talmud, Shali v'shalachem, shalahu. For what I am and for what you are is hers. My father, here in spirit, who at the age of 22 as a Royal Canadian Air Force lieutenant and official war artist, went into Bergen-Belsen shortly after its liberation and recorded what he saw. His work, now in Yad Vashem, synagogues and galleries around the world, testifies to the human capacity for evil, but also our ability to confront and defeat it, should we choose the uncomfortable path of constant resistance. To Joyce and Aubrey Chernick, courageous visionaries whose friendship and support have been a safe haven in a world where despair and paralysis at the betrayal of liberal democracies is the relentless siren's call. And to Nina Rosenwald and Lawrence and Susan Kadish, 3 indefatigable, self-effacing, noble warriors who have stood by me and with me almost since the day I moved to New York City from Toronto with my 3 incredible gutsy girls on September the 9th, 2001. And to Touro College, its founding president, Bernard Lander, Zichrono Livracha, chairman of the board, Dr. Mark Haston, and its current president, Dr. Alan Kadish, now taking the school to new heights. Touro is a totally unique institution, a unique university system where one can be proud to be Jewish, a Zionist, and pro-human rights all at the same time. Now, as an international human rights lawyer, I have spent the last 3 decades monitoring and participating in the human rights world of the United Nations. It wasn't long before I sadly realized that human rights at the UN were for everybody except Zionists. Jewish self-determination was racist, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, genocide. But most disheartening for me was to watch my friends and partners in combating discrimination against a long list of victims, one by one, vanish when it came time to confront anti-Semitism. Somehow, Israel always deserved the censure, which was allowed to accumulate year after year until the inevitable result was Israel's demonization. There was always one more: if only Israel were to do that, then it would be welcomed as an equal member of the family of nations. Never mind that this family already included mass murderers, misogynist tyrants, and slave masters in the name of universality and sovereign equality. What could not be accomplished by Israel's enemies on the military battlefield has proved to be much easier on the political battlefield, headquartered at the UN, an international platform for propagating the now widely shared belief that Israel is the perpetual villain and the Palestinian the perpetual victim, regardless of who died and who murdered, who healed in their hospitals and who threw human beings off tall buildings, who used cement to build apartments and who used cement to build terror tunnels, who appointed the other to society's trusted positions and who murdered the other for the crime of tilling the land. In statistical terms, to name but a few, the United Nations General Assembly has held 10 emergency sessions in its history, and half have been on Israel alone. In fact, nothing but Israel since 1997. In 2012, 75% of all the General Assembly's condemnations for human rights violations by any state were directed to Israel. The UN's top human rights body, the Human Rights Council, has a permanent agenda with 10 items, one dedicated to condemning Israel alone, and one for all other 192 UN states, and then only if they require attention. Each year, the UN's top women's rights body criticizes only one country on earth for violating the rights of women, Israel, for violating Palestinian women's rights. The UN's top anti-racism manifesto, the Durban Declaration, singles out one state for racism, Israel. The UN is where the leading state sponsor of terrorism and modern architect of nuclear proliferation came for and received a makeover. Iran is currently on the executive of the General Assembly Committee on Disarmament and International Security, the UN Commission on the Status of Women, and the executive of the UN Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice Commission. In June, Iran was president of the Conference on Disarmament. Tomorrow, the UN General Assembly will reach the apex of its cyclical year-long delegitimization of Israel by holding the annual UN International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. This year, 18 Birthright Israel alumni, who I had invited to bear witness to this event, have been barred from attending. For the first time, despite the fact that my institute